Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Madhava ki jai, Vortrag Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for writing up the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we read from the fourth canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 22, entitled Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the Kumaras, text 3. Nice. Okay. So I don't speak Spanish, Russian, or Italian, so we will stick with English if that's okay. Okay. I mean, verse Sanskrit. Tadashanot gatan prana. Let me try again. Tadashanot gatan pranan. Tadashanot gatan pranan. Tadashanot gatan pranan. Tadashanot gatan pranan. Tadashanot gatan pranam. Pradyadishtu ivotitaha. Pradodishtu ivotitaha. Pradyadishtu ivotitaha. Dishtu ivotitaha. Sasadasyanu govanya. Sasadasyanu govanya. Sasadasyanu govanya. Sadasyanu govanya. Indriyesho gunaniva. Indriyesho gunaniva. Indriyesho gunaniva. On Prabhu. Tadashanot gatan pranan. Pradyatishu ivotitaha. Sasadasya nugovanya. Indriyeshu gunaniva. That did Vaishnavis. Tadashanot gatan pranan. Pratyaditsu ivotitaha. Sasadasya nugovanya. Indriyeshu gunaniva. To try? Alakananda, you want to try? Tadashanot gatan pranan. Pradyadishu ivotitaha. Sasadasya nugovanya. Indriyeshu gunaniva. Very nice. It's interesting how with Sanskrit, like German, words are put together and then it changes the meaning, and for me that's always a bit of a blur for the eye. And if you know where the words are, this is where you would change the syllable like darshana and udgatan, two words get put together. Yes. And then the A and U just become an O. Okay, sorry. Tat, him, darshana, seeing, udgatan, being greatly desired, pranan, life, pradyaditshuhu, peacefully going, eva, like, utitaha, got up, sa, with, sadasya, associates or followers, anugaha, officers, vanya, King Prithu, Indriya Ishaha, a living entity, Guna Niva, as influenced by the modes of material nature. So translation. Seeing the four Kumaras, Prithu Maharaj was greatly anxious to receive them. Therefore the king with all his officers very hastily got up, as anxiously as a conditioned soul whose senses are immediately attracted by the modes of material nature. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 3:27 it is said, Prakrita kriyamanani gunakamani savashaha ankara vibhutatma katahamiti manyate. Every conditioned soul is influenced by a particular mixture of the modes of material nature. As such, the conditioned soul is attracted to certain types of activity which he is forced to perform because he is completely under the influence of material nature. Here, Prithu Maharaj is compared to such a conditioned soul, not because he was a conditioned soul, but because he was so anxious to receive the Kumaras that it was as if without them he would have lost his life. The conditioned soul is attracted by the objects of sense gratification. His eyes are attracted to see beautiful things. His ears are attracted to hear nice music. His nose is attracted to enjoy the aroma of a nice flower, and his tongue is attracted to taste nice food. Similarly, all his other senses, his hands, his legs, his belly, his genitals, his mind, etc., are so susceptible to the attraction of the objects of enjoyment that he cannot restrain himself. Prithu Maharaj in the same way could not restrain himself from receiving the four Kumaras, who were bright by dint of their spiritual progress, and thus not only he himself, but also his officers and associates all received the four Kumaras. It is said, birds of a feather flock together. In this, have you heard this before? Birds of a feather flock together. In this world, everyone is attracted by a person of the same category. A drunkard is attracted to persons who are also drunkards. Similarly, a saintly person is attracted by other saintly persons. Prithu Maharaj was in the topmost position of spiritual advancement, and as such, he was attracted by the Kumaras, who were of the same category. It is said, therefore, that a man is known by his company. Important verse. So the translation again. Seeing the four Kumaras, Prithu Maharaj was greatly anxious to receive them. Therefore, the king with all his officers very hastily got up, as anxiously as a conditioned soul whose senses are immediately attracted by the modes of material nature. Om Kriyanti Marandisya Kyana Salakaya Chakshunitim Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datishva Padantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivaswati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare. So thank you very much for coming, mostly Vaishnavis today. So today, this verse talks a lot about association. So I thought we would focus in on that topic in particular. The English saying is birds of a feather flock together. This refers to, because it's a little bit of an odd, sort of imagery, sort of birds of a feather. It's meaning that kind stick with the same kind. There was a series in England, and it had birds of a feather flock together, and it was referring to all the prison inmates, actually. That sometimes what happens is when you enter into a prison house, instead of being corrected or finding your way, actually your association is that you learn more crime, more about more leads and links and whatever else. In the same way, it's a little bit daunting to feel like the very first sentence, every conditioned soul is influenced by a particular mixture of the modes of material nature. This is also, Ramananda touched on this point yesterday in the Bhagavad Gita class, I actually spoke about this, that we're conditioned. Alex, would you mind to sit here, or just because I feel like I'm going to get neck strain otherwise, and I don't think so many more would come. They may be next to Pramakni. You can have the microphone if you like. Okay, she took it. So in this same way, in our association, Prabhupada speaks a lot about association. And when I first joined, it was a little bit of an odd word, because I think it's a little bit old English, association. Association you would normally, in sort of normal modern day talk, speak about a business interaction, and this is my associate, this is somebody I'm with. Association is, of course, a word that we use in our Hare Krishna ISKCON lingo, so to say, but actually it's a different meaning. I was also reflecting, one element of this association is that there is some level of formality to it. Sometimes when we're a little too informal with others, we just speak whatever we are thinking and feeling, or this, we can get ourselves a little bit into trouble, unless it's a very good friend, right? But we have to be careful. So I did think, okay, there's this level of association. Now it also spoke about drunkards are attracted to other people who are drunkards. Just for a moment, we won't make it too interactive today, a little bit though. Just reflect back in your own lives. Maybe, for example, for myself, as a trained designer, when I was with design people, it was a different mood. Everyone was like, very like smiley and nice, a little bit fake, I have to say, just surface level, because everything should look beautiful, but it's a certain level. And I remember I worked in a very big company, Penguin Books, a very large company, and like from here maybe 3 times longer was the office space, and everybody was somehow the same sort of modus. Then later on, when I became more into Krishna consciousness, I thought, let me change. I need to go into something with more substance. So I was working for a charity for children. And then when there were these big meetings in the local sort of state buildings, one saw also, it was a different mood. It was charity. We are like power, we are the fighters for for children's rights, for their protection, for everything. It was a little bit more like, the expression was more like, yes, the children should not be going together. You sort of associated with those who we had time. Now, as we come together as devotees, most of us come from so many different backgrounds. Some are more into farming, some came from the city, some came from a very educated path, some didn't finish school. We come from all different elements. And our main part of that we associate with is the spiritual aspect. If we come for program, if we're sitting here for class, all of these other aspects. So then naturally it should be harmonious, right? Because we all have Krishna as our goal. And as most of us know, it's often not so harmonious in temples. And I think that is the fact that we do come in with different ways of being. Like, for example, if I am speaking to another graphic designer, for example, after some moments, you just get into a certain way of talking. I don't know if it was like that when as a doctor, a certain way of speaking with each other. and you know, there's some you won't get on with, so you're okay, you don't enter in the conversation, but otherwise it goes quite quickly because you're speaking in a certain way. It's the same when we are as devotees, we can speak about Krishna, but I still remember, I reminded him 20 years later, but I was around 18, 19. My brother was very much into Krishna consciousness, and you know, we had a lot association. We should associate with each other. We should associate. It was like, okay, here's my friend David. He will explain to you the parampara. I was like, okay, polite upbringing, not very interested, but polite. So then for an hour he went through, an hour on stuff I didn't really understand in a very textbook, without any bit of something, this hour. And I remember just sitting there, and actually he was standing and telling me all this, okay, And then I spoke about something outside. I think I was doing a run for charity, and they were like, oh, that's just nonsense like this. And I was like, okay, this parampara, this is great, and the rest is nonsense. And I went away, and I was like, okay. Afterwards, one understood what they meant was that, okay, our real welfare work is propagating spiritual life, right? But in that time, that association, it didn't help me because I was just confused and bored. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? The knowledge he gave was wonderful. It was great. I just reminded him because somehow he turned up here 20 years later with his wife and child. I hadn't seen him in years. And I said, wow, I still remember this conversation that I should listen to something, but I didn't understand. And there's two things that happen. One, you get no real taste. Or second, you get a little bit of taste, but you feel a bit stupid. I don't know what the person's talking about, right? So in the same way, I often also came to class. It felt like you missed something beforehand sometimes when you go. Because, okay, we're straight with Prithu Maharaj and the meeting of the Kumaras. This one, sometimes you have to know what happened before or what's coming up. But sometimes it's not relevant. But there you sit, you're not really getting it. It's the same sometimes with association. Okay, so we used to associate, we used to meet each other, cook some prasadam. Okay, we should read some Bhagavad Gita. So I read from Bhagavad Gita. After 10, 15 minutes, does anyone have any comments? No? Okay, in our early 20s, put it down. Then you get, a cup of tea. Then the real conversation begins, or so one feels. Huh? Oh, this happened. Did you hear that happened there and here and this devotee and this? It becomes the regular sort of association, which is not often so conducive for spiritual life. And hands up, I'd have to say around 80% sometimes of our conversation also in ashram and temple life is around that way. Association which is maybe not conducive for our actual spiritual lives. Now, what can we do if we're conditioned? What is the point in one sense? We're conditioned, but that's part of it too. We are conditioned, but some part of us, the super soul, reached out and tried to break that barrier between all our conditional, our sort of, hamsters in a wheel, this sort of daily life, to break out of it. So we were slowly coming out of that way. It's often quoted, Prabhupada said, we're in the shower. It's not that we are all pure, but we're getting purified. And on that process, I also found that that level of association, it really had to develop. One time you're in a group of people and they seem only to do this very thing that we should avoid, fault finding, yes? And then if you stay in this group, then you're also like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. Everything is so heavy and hard and this and X and Y. And then the other extreme is, okay, I will just associate with those who read the scriptures and that's it. I won't say or think anything else, right? So then you have two. One is sort of robotic, one is sort of entangled. Now in between we have the joyful nectar of instruction, right? We have the 6 loving exchanges from text 4. Who's done Bhakti Shastri? Oh, you've done Bhakti Shastri. Does anyone know what these 6 symptoms of love are? Or name any. Does anyone remember any of them? I begin. Giving charity or giving a gift, and accepting whatever the devotee gives you in return. Then also giving prasadam and receiving prasadam. That's very nice. You see, it's an exchange. And I always found, I wouldn't say the most important, but very significant, was opening one's mind to the devotees. And here it says inquiring from them about the confidential service of the Lord. But other versions say also opening one's mind to the Lord and also receiving what the other one has to say. So we can understand from that element, it's not a case that we just have very superficial or, mundane relationships. We're not just giving gifts, but we're also revealing what's going on inside. And this is the part, I think there's a very thin line between revealing one's mind and maybe going into maybe what could be, whatever one says, fault finding, like this, right? So it's particularly choosing, particularly choosing what one needs to reveal. Because if we imagine that our mind has, I forget how much, at least maybe 10,000 thoughts in a day, it must be you're going somewhere, you're like just cooking or something, and suddenly you think about Africa or something random or something, and you're already there. Then you've gone off here to there, you're in the forest, somewhere the mind is flying around, right? So if we already have these 10,000 or so thoughts, then it's okay to understand some may not be the best, some may just be off on another track, but some can bring us back to association with others. And there's something that's also, I have a quote somewhere, maybe I find it, about associating with the Lord. Now, what does it mean to associate with Krishna? Krishna, let me see if I can find a quote. When we keep our association with Krishna, every activity is proper and liberating. But if we disassociate ourselves from the Lord's mercy, then like a hand, sorry, it's a little gruesome, then like a hand which is severed from the body, we become ugly and useless. Now, it's interesting because there are some levels of association which we know can help us. Like, I don't know, going to a morning program and you see the Lord. However, if your mind is very strong or you really only had 3 or 4 hours sleep, it can also be a troublesome experience because it happened to me when I first was in the ashram. We had to go every day to Mangalati, and I was lying on the floor making obeisances in the dark room and thinking, oh, when can I sleep? When can I just sleep? When will it end? When can I sleep? And I thought, oh my goodness, what is this for consciousness? That it's like this level. Now we're a bit more the opposite side. We say, take good rest, please come when you can. But it can go the other side. Okay, no, I'm not going to come, right? So it's in between where you think, okay, let me get enough rest and let me bring my consciousness here. Many devotees, if they're honest, will admit that when they come to the temple room too, we are like people with a suitcase of items with us. We bring whatever we've just been doing with us. So it's something nice. You may be working with the cows. You may be, oh, yes, okay, nice. There was a cow. They had some trouble. Oh, Krishna, take care. But if it's some trouble, it'd be like we're looking at the Lord, but we're not really seeing. We're like, oh, and this, and why did that have to happen today? And maybe I can deal with it, and maybe I can. And it's again bringing the mind and the thoughts and the vision back to Krishna. Here it says the senses are so strong, right, that we want to, just quote directly, the eyes are attracted to see beautiful things, so higher taste. We see Krishna, we see Lord Nrsingadev. Even now we have wonderful Gonitai, always so beautifully dressed, right? So we go and take darshan with them. It's also beautiful that we have this Gonitai room when one is not feeling 100% and one doesn't want to be surrounded. One goes quietly in. It's mostly one is alone or just a couple of people there, right? Then we have his ears attracted to hear nice music. Most people, I spoke about it, to listen to the radio or listen to some music outside, some other music outside. Some people go to rock concerts sometimes. So our music is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There's sometimes been volunteers, it didn't happen this time, but someone, why do you always sing a Krishna? Why is it always Krishna, Krishna? Jai, Nishtingadev, Ki Jai. It's very beautiful and light today, oh, the Lord, sort of golden and yellow. Yeah, so it's always Krishna. So we transfer it over. His nose is attracted to enjoy the aromas of a nice flower. We spoke about this. So before, in times before, flowers were given to a lady, yeah, if there was some interest. Now flowers are given to be offered to the Lord. And so it's also, we can enjoy them after the Lord has enjoyed them. His tongue is attracted to nice food. Of course, we have prasadam. And his other senses, including his mind, are susceptible to the attraction of the objects of enjoyment. So we can't help it. Oh? The mind wants to enjoy. One tip for this is that if you find in your spiritual life, when you wake up, you are not feeling like, whoa, today I've got this on, or today I'm going to do this, then you need to revisit what's going on in your consciousness. Is it because you're feeling sick, or you're tired, or something else is coming, or there isn't something in your life which fulfills you spiritually? So for example, right now, for example, I'm designing a book, and I can see when I'm about to design, I'm sort of ready, although I have to wake up early and instead of work on the book because it has a just 2-3 week deadline, it gives a certain feeling of, okay, I'm in the flow, I'm trying to serve Krishna in this moment. Don't worry, I also have mental moments, but in that moment I try to give it over to the Lord and I feel connected. And one feels that certain sort of pull up, Most of us, we have to find something that works for us in this direction. Otherwise we will feel a little bit, is the word Lebenslos, like a little bit without life. Is it a German word? Do you say Lebenslos or say something else? Like when lifeless, how you say this? Do you feel like, oh, what's the right German word? Leblos. Sort of like I feel life is like without life. You have to inject spiritual life into your daily life, right? Otherwise, there are too many reasons for the mind to kick in and tell you how unhappy you are. That's the point. And I find also when I'm not having a good day, then 95% you're attracted to somebody also not having a good day. And if it's a friend, it's good because you can share your problems. But if it's not someone that you're too friendly with, then it can just accelerate this bad feeling. You're just like, oh, so miserable. It's terrible. What are we doing here? The very last line in this verse is about a man is known by his company. Or we would say the company he keeps. When we are associating also with devotees, we also have to be very careful for different reasons. Why is the reason we have to be careful? When we're associating, Pramagni, what would be a problem? Easy to get influenced. And if it's a good influence, then okay, the guru. But if it's a negative influence, then it can also lead us to feel quite low in our way. Okay, what else? Why is it good to associate? Why do you think there is this emphasis to associate with others? Something that you enjoy very much, Alex. Yeah, but something that you also, association, if we look outside of the box, can be something else. Like you love kirtan, for example. But if you're just sitting here playing by yourself, it's nice, to learn a little bit. Maybe it's nice. Anutara is also musically talented. You can, so it's nice. But I feel that when we have a group of people, especially, say, example, on a Saturday yagya, that whole vibration is brought up literally by the association of the devotees and the holy name. It's like it just brings it up. So in this way, if we were just in our own little caves, it doesn't really work. And I also found that sometimes when people are not doing so well, some devotees are not, they tend to sometimes a little bit isolate themselves a bit too much. You know, and sometimes if they came at the right moments out, it can bring oneself out. I'm also the same in that way. I'm like, okay, just leave me be a little bit. But sometimes one has to give oneself a little bit of a push to be also in association in the way that works. Like, for example, generally in a yagya, one does feel uplifted. As long as you don't have a headache or something, then it's uplifting because the kirtan is so amazing. Association is also that I had one Mataji before in the ashram who said, but I've tried to associate with everybody, but nobody associates with me. And I was like, yeah, but you're trying a little bit too hard here. It's like, it was literally like, okay, Monday I'll meet you, Tuesday you, Wednesday you, Thursday, and what about me? Like it was a bit sort of artificial. Normally we find some people, we try a little bit at the beginning, it's a bit awkward, a little bit. Like, would you like to have some tea or something? Invite somebody over, have some herbal tea, and then one sees if there's some sort of connection, right? For myself, I find that it doesn't mean I have to have someone my own age to connect with. It could be someone much older, much younger. There's not so many people my own age in their 40s here, but it doesn't mean that one is limited to a certain time. Before we had also people associating often with just their god family. I would also be quite alone here because, but it's both sides of what we're doing. If we see that we're under the god family of Srila Prabhupada, then one can see, I often find it's very amazing to hear how other gurus relate to different things. Like His Holiness Kadamba Kananam, in a nice way, sometimes made jokes of Satchidananda Swami in a funny way, and also mostly the disciples, a different mood, a different way of being. But it was interesting to see how they sort of linked together. I think that particular joke, he was saying that I sort of looked more like one of his disciples than the other, like a little jokey, a little bit down to earth, like this sort of mood. But it doesn't mean that just because we have a certain way of being that we only associate with those people. I think we often have to break out of that modus. For example, I'm not too much of at least in temple life, I don't have time to read so much. But I find it's very good to associate with people. For example, Damodar Prish is also a god sister, but that's just on a level of reading, for example, because you have this. With Anuttara, we connect with the talk about working with others. Like working with others and going a bit deeper in this. With Prem Agni, we might speak about design or color, this and outfits for the Lord. So some things we can often find to associate with others which work for them. If I was with Alex and I know, okay, cows, she loves cows. So I can ask her. I have almost no information about cows. So it's very interesting to go in and say, okay, what's this like? Or even just looking when cow lovers are with cows is amazing, so a certain love and feeling that there is with this. And as the cows are servants here, giving us milk, then it's also a nice association. With Alakananda, I should not say it, but she's a dancer too, if you didn't know. So she dances very nicely. One might ask to dance with her or dance. Always nice for Mangalati that she will mostly always dance. Hopefully she doesn't stop now I said that. But so we all have different ways of where we can associate with each other, which doesn't mean that we are, losing our own identity or going away from ourselves. But often one just has to find that connection. It's how they said Srila Prabhupada was able just to see someone or meet them and be able to allocate what service that they were inclined for. We're not Srila Prabhupada, but still it just takes a little bit of time, right, to find that way through. Also, I find even in the ashram that one leads it more to also reciprocation. Before it used to be a lot, I tell you, you listen, you do, that's it. Your mind is, what was the old thing, your mind? Don't be mental. I hate this. I rule it out because the mind can give us trouble, and normally we have to have some tools to deal with it. But for some people, trying just to repress it doesn't really help long term. So one has to work with this. Sometimes association may be difficult for us because we're going through something ourselves. But then it also might help to do a prayer to the Lord to try to push us out. I prayed, for example, I don't know if I should be embarrassed or not, but I prayed, Lord, please, could I have some friend in spiritual life? Some friend, because it can feel a bit lonely if you're in a group of people, but you feel unconnected, right? You're with so many people, and then you're not connected. So it was this, and he reciprocated. I then got, and I realized that the prayer meant not just that I sit there waiting. I did sort of wait for a while. But he wants me also to do some activity here. I have to try to make that endeavor to go. One gets especially with your family life, you get used to your certain home life. You have to make the endeavor to have certain association with different people where you can connect, and also to help you in your spiritual life. I have a nice friend of mine who lives by Radikund, and sometimes we just speak on the level of the mood of deepening our bhajan or our association with the Lord, our internal association, right? So sometimes there may be questions or this, and it doesn't matter that we haven't spoken for some months, but you enter into that conversation. And first, when I began to think, when we think of our relationship with the Lord, we might be, I don't have a relationship, or something, I don't know, maybe it'll come back in another lifetime. We can easily dismiss it. But if we understand that our whole focus is to remember Krishna and not to forget him, that association begins a lot with our own endeavors. When our mind kicks in and starts us making a whole list of things which have nothing to do with Krishna, we can bring it back together. Small things, like we're hungry. So we think, let me try to cook something for Krishna. If we're so hungry, we can only think about the food, let me at least offer it. Outside, I know in England, at least back then, people have a problem with this. Yeah, they're busy, so they quickly make something, and then they do the very busy, But if we make the endeavor, just those 3 minutes to say the prayers, it's already part of it. When we associate with others and we're not sure how conversation will go, say it's uneasy, I always recommend to pray to Lord Nrsingadev. Please help me to say the words that will help this person in whatever way that they need. So then we also have that association. Sometimes, I remember, I think it was a lecture from Ananda Krishna. He said it's okay to have doubts. In fact, in one way we should have doubts, because it means that we're thinking something's going on. But what's the problematic is if you keep those doubts all hidden inside. Those doubts are there for whatever reason. They need to be spoken to the right person, at the right time. And my own experience is when there's a doubt or something, basically we feel something that we know we shouldn't feel, right? Like, I don't know, I should be happy about spiritual life, but I'm not. Miserable. Don't feel good, right? But we don't sit on this. We think, okay, but why am I miserable? 50% is sometimes just because we haven't had enough sleep. We haven't taken care of ourselves, right? The other side is to go in, okay, what is this? And to express what's going on. It could be that you try to express this with a co-roommate or somebody else, but it doesn't work out. It might just mean that that person didn't understand or it didn't work. It doesn't mean that one should stop at that moment. One then looks for other people then to try to find it. On the other side of things, when we have a doubt or some problem, that person, especially I would say if it's a good friend or becomes a good friend, may not necessarily tell you what you want to hear, but they may tell you what you need to hear. That might be, the normal test is it something that would be in line with my spiritual path, with Krishna? Some people who seem like friends at the beginning may say, yes, okay, do that, forget everything, don't do that service and go home and leave them up. Yeah, I can see it's too much, And that may feel good at that moment, but not necessarily good for your spiritual life. It's that element or that beginning. It can feel a bit like poison at the beginning, but then it's like nectar at the end, in a mode of goodness. So it can feel like this. Sometimes people say this about their japa when they first, like, why do we have to chant now? Like, okay, this is when I can sleep or after program, but after some time when you get a taste for the holy name, it's something that most of us cannot live without afterwards. But that taste has to be there. It's like especially the taste of association, because my association I had on the early days was not so conducive for spiritual life. I assumed that maybe one doesn't need it so much. And then one person advised me, maybe just change the people who you are hanging out with. And don't get me wrong, they're very nice people. They're very nice people. But they just were not what I needed in that moment. So change the people that you hang out with and see what can make you grow. And so then I felt like I was a little bit in deep water. I was like, okay, these people seem nice, but I don't know. I should just say hi or what. So I think I went up and said, oh, I heard you doing a project. Can I help? Or could I do something? And the person would have said no, It happens a couple of times. This was like, yeah, sure, in early stages. Their project in particular was called, or is called, Mantra Lounge in London. It was the beginning days. There was nothing much happening. We had to get the money for the room. We had to make some flyers. We had to get everybody in who may come. And we didn't know if 0 people would turn up on the first day. It was a very exciting time. And I was very happy. Her name is Jay Murari. She let me come into the team to help. And that gave a bit of life because it was somehow exciting. What's going on? Like, we're having a whole event, it's a bit outside of the box. We had a saxophone player and a violinist and, everything was happening. And it was deep down, very central London as well. Okay, how we are serving the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But maybe we shouldn't wear devotional clothes, or maybe we should, or, all these different questions. It brought some life to what my usual understanding of spiritual life was. And in that life, one could grow. One could grow in what happens. It's all also according to your personality. Some may need a traditional view, and then often that's reflected in a guru that one chooses. I have a guru who's very out of the box in one way, such an Swami. So in that way, it's easier to grow things. Then Kadamba Maharaj also out of the box. Can I say out of the box? And one felt empowered by him. I had not so many, but a few conversations. One always felt quite uplifted afterwards in what he said. Although, a bit of a cynical nature that he mixed with spiritual life, and it was sort of very interesting, this mix, this humanness, but still keeping it spiritual as well. I have to say, Arthur T.P. Govindadev, another one some years back, said, well, how do you stay in spiritual life? Because as you get older in the movement, or if you've been there, you see people come and go. In Germany, it's been more stable, but of course we've also seen people leave. Like, what is it? What keeps people here? They spoke about being oneself, like keeping your personality, and then finding those who you can associate with that personality. Doesn't mean that if you're a rude person that you continue to be rude, but sometimes you are. Like, I'm very, I like to have things clear and not too flowery, just straight as it was. But I know that's not for many Mataji, so then obviously, sometimes people like it more poetrical, more soft or more like this. So one has different times that we associate with. And we learn that over time. We'll also change over time. The people I associated with in my 20s changed very much to now. Some of those people one grew with, also people outside of the movement who could really understand a spiritual path. One grew also in terms of what one was learning. And bringing it back to the verse today, it's like Prithu Maharaj was a great soul. It's saying that his senses were sort of overcome as if he was attracted, but he wasn't. But he had so much spiritual understanding. Because if one can imagine if the four Kumaras, these saintly persons, were in front of us. Sometimes we have saintly persons, and you just see the devotees immediately flock down. Or when, like Indrajumna Swami comes, or someone comes, immediately one feels this sort of what did he call this dint of, we're bright by dint of their spiritual progress. So one feels it sometimes. And in that moment of attraction, the material attraction lessens. So Prithu Maharaj was so attracted by the Kumaras, he openly received them. In the same way, when our attraction grows and grows the spiritual life, then the other things fade a little bit also away. And moments we will get where elements of spiritual life will come back, like a past, relationship or something. But it's just normally part of the consciousness of what we're doing. When we are stronger in our spiritual life, we will remember the tools that we have made to help us. So for example, one conditioning may be when we feel very bad, then we hide ourselves away. So one part of breaking free from that conditioning is, let me go into a crowded kirtan where nobody needs my individual attention, but I can somehow get that association of the holy name. Yeah? It's not to say I feel terrible, let me go meet the person I have the least friendship with. You know what I mean? It's trying to find something that balances up that mood. I have a couple of quotes. We look, because my husband and I, there's a few of us here, Brian included, we did recently in the last half year a teacher training course within the School of Learning that Damodar Priya is leading over. And it was very nice. We could choose any topic to do a presentation about, a PowerPoint presentation. And our main teacher, she did her presentation on association and the power of association. That again, there is this view that we are, it's not that we're labeled, but we are, in the same way as we are known by the company we keep. Sometimes if we are always with people who are low or down, then we'll be known, okay, that's the area there. Or if we're always with the people who are very loud and brash, we will also be known in that way. Like for Charu in the school, the teacher said, he's with the group which are, libs, half lively, yes? But he knows he's polite. He knows how to come down, so lively, the boys which are a little bit more louder, but then he knows how to be polite, but he's known now, that this is in this group. It's the same with us. In the same way, it's like, if as an ashram, it's like, the ashram before, the ashram is always so unhappy. Then it's labeled together as a group, but we as individuals have an element to break out of that too, Sometimes people expect that it should come from temple and not back, but actually we make up the temple. We make up the ashram. We make up all of that is. And in that way, that's empowering, that we are a part of something. How things have changed in the last 13, 14 years that I've been here is amazing. But there's some things which are the same. We still have the association of our Lord Nrsimhadev, of Prabhupada. We didn't have the association back then of Gonitai as we do now. So that's grown. We had very few devotees here, very few Matajis at that time. Now it grows. You see people come and go quite often in the ashram. And it also gives us an element to know each other. We also didn't have back then online lectures, for example. I mean, you had Prabhupada somewhere you could hear. But now we have that element where we can really associate. Yeah. Make plans on activities we should do. She wrote, make plans on how to spread Krishna consciousness. For those who, it's very nice for those preaching type. I'm more somebody, for example, who would like to maintain what we have, because sometimes these many people come in, but then the structure in between of how do we stay happy as devotees. So then it's also nice to make a plan of how can we support each other as we are here. Are there any questions that you have on association? Oh, thank you, Brian. You need the microphone?
I remember this the presentation from Kirtida Sundari Mataji,
Okay,
which was very nice. I also liked much. I wanted to ask you what was the point that you felt that it connected mostly with the topic that you chose today? The association, of course, is the broad topic, but were there some specific points on that was
from her presentation, you mean, or
Yeah.
from? Yeah, I mean, because at least in England, if you speak these comments, birds of a feather flock together, or a man is known by his company, it's all to do with association. And in terms of hers, it's like the understanding is, do we know, which comes often, especially in a temple, do we know how to associate with each other? We know how to come to the temple program. We know how to do some service together with somebody else. But do we understand the fine details of associating? You know, like this level too, because I mean, she didn't go so much into it, but we had to do a group activity, I think, to say, I think it's something along the lines of name some examples in Shastra of association that helped the other person, and examples in Shastra which were not good, you know, which didn't help the situation. You know, like, you know, we have like in Mahabharata, you have Shakuni influencing Duryodhana as a bad association. You know, the Ramayana, you have, was it Mantreya influencing Kake? You know, the Dasharat's wife to like basically exile Ram. Not good association. You know, like a whole. So it was examples like this that made me think, let's talk about this, because it's also subtle in temple life. We can also be that we just didn't hang out then with the wrong people, but they're not bad people. They just may not help us spiritually to grow and advance. So it was like building up the next level. You know, like for example, are you a mathematician background? Yeah. So it could be that if there was 3 other mathematicians, you may hang out with them because you have something to talk about. But actually, they may have nothing really to help you in your spiritual life. It might be nice to talk to them, but you actually want something that makes you, you know, feel inspired in your own life. For example, just by the fact that we are a Sankirtan temple, I went on Sankirtan. You know, I mean, not much, but I went on some Sankirtan, or I tried to distribute some books. But before, if you asked me 15 years ago, do I want to go on Sankirtan? I was like, no. Why? It's cold and this, and like, it is not my nature, you know, it just is not my nature. But of course, you know, if you want me to try to sell some books, I can do it. But I didn't have that mood 15 years ago. The mood of Sankirtan devotees was quite, the opposite a little bit. And I was like, yeah, you know, quite broad, strong, kshatriyas, don't say no, go. And I'm just not like that. But now you see also, I think it changed with devotees like Munindragana, some softer mood in that way came in with how they distribute. I saw once Munindragana and Bjorn on the streets. To me, they looked like 2 gentle post-delivery people, you know? And they were just talking to people, like very nicely, friendly, just by in Passau. And so that mood changed, but it was also association, you know, associated with ladies who need to, you know, who are very fiery and go with it. Maybe one becomes fiery, I don't know. You know, but the association is very important in that way. When I joined, when I came here, there were only Russian-speaking ladies. I mean, not Russian, sorry, German-speaking. No, there's no German, you're German, of course. But and they only spoke German with each other. So the association at lunchtime was 0 in one sense. And I'm not good with languages like you, Brian. I did not understand just by hearing them. I didn't pick up anything by hearing them, except I thought they were shouting at each other. They were not, but it's just... So that association that we take is what will carry us and also bring us down. I gave this example a couple of times, sorry, repeat it, but I have one young girl. She was 17, and her association of nice devotees was unfortunately that they decided it was okay to smoke cannabis. And she smoked cannabis for the first time with them because they told her, they somehow tried to spiritualize it. You know, that you can access some higher thing. And because she hadn't read enough, she hadn't associated, one can say, too much or enough with the Shastra, then it became different, right? The younger generation, Krishna consciousness, it's normal that they associate with each other. We had it with the different, the melas or whatever. The boys and girls are a bit more free with each other. Now, when you speak, you say, okay, we're fine with it. But when you speak a bit more closer, then you understand actually it is difficult. So the part that we mostly associate just with, same gender often does help us, for example. But normally you have to go through your own experience, right? But the difference that we have as spiritual beings who unfortunately are still conditioned is that consciousness. That makes the difference. That association can bring us up. I get it with, if you're asking with Kirti Sundari, she also spoke about association with like pure souls, like saintly people, of course. Then it obviously brings us up. But just because we're in a temple and we have a lot of potential for association with each other, it's that element of consciousness, like what element of that person are we associating with? You know what I mean?
I'm wondering whether this element that we are associating with from other people and how we choose the other people, it's depending on the internal conversation that we have, the association that we have with our own self.
Yes, I think definitely. The internal conversation plays so much a part. It was also in Ramananda's class yesterday, right? That somebody may come and try to give you a compliment and say, do you go to the gym or and then you're thinking, oh, I'm fat and I'm this. And so immediately you're thinking, oh, you're saying I'm fat. But they didn't say that at all, right? But it's the internal conversation that's going on with us. In the same way, when the internal conversation is to try to see and hear Krishna. If we're determined and that first person is off the track, like I've gone outside and I don't know, I didn't have it so much in London. I don't know if it's Germany, it's a different climate, but sometimes someone is shouting or something, not really at you, but in your direction, So if you look clearly, it's not at you, but you're somehow there in that moment. And that's happened to me, and I'm like, okay, what was going on inside of me? And I was like, actually, I wanted some peace, and that's why I came outside, But what I got was the opposite. So what's happening here? And I was like, well, my search for peace was maybe because I was not feeling so, so good internally. So I was searching for that peaceful feeling. I've tried to surrender that over. When I first came for the first couple of years, I just used to pray for peace, just to feel peaceful in that situation. But actually, I think it takes a lot of grounding in our spiritual life to finally feel that peace. When we are not feeling so great inside, then it can change the mood. So therefore, we have to be careful. Either we choose, if internally it's not going good, to keep a bit away, or we choose to go in, like I say, safe element, like a quiet moment of the day to have a quick darshan with the Lord. I had somebody I visited last week who said, yes, I'm not feeling so great, so I didn't come, but I just wanted to come for a little while. And in that time, in those 5 minutes she came, this and this happened, and it was literally that somebody was having not quite a fight, but almost a fight, and this and the other. And I said, okay, don't give up. Don't give up. It's just, there could be so many reasons we see things, right? For example, for me, when I saw the association is not working, it made me go deeper. If things are given to you, don't go so deep into why, but why isn't it working? Why, when I'm with X, Y, and Z person, do I not feel somehow uplifted or something. And then I thought, aha, it's because that person spoke on this level and I just met them on their conversation, and then we kept it all on that sort of mundane level. So they may have not been, I might not have been uplifted, but probably they were also not uplifted. And in that time, we also have that moment to change. Some of my most beautiful conversations were, for example, with this person, when we spoke about our inner dialogue with Krishna. Because it's a different conversation. It's like in the Japa workshop when we do our letter to Krishna. You know, some part of it begins like, what should I write? Or I don't feel you, you're not here. And then it changes at one element. Oh, but just for a moment, I thought maybe you were there. Sometimes people say now a time alone with Krishna, it's not about Krishna, it's about me. You know, like as if, say I speak to Anuttara and I say, let's meet, and I spend 59 minutes of that hour just talking about me. Oh, I did this and this, and I felt like this, and this person did this, and and she's nodding, and then this. But that sometimes can be seen as a relationship with Krishna. It's a bit more like, oh, and even, oh, I can't do this service, and it's not going right, and it's not well, and this. It's like, how is it that we turn that internal conversation also with Krishna? Like, Krishna, what is your will? The end point, of course, is when Prabhupada's asking, let us be his puppet. But even before we become really his servant, what's the point where we just say, what is it that you would like here, Lord? What is it? Which way could I serve you? It's not often, yeah, you do 24-hour service and do this. It's often subtle things that changes in our lives. You know, or one sees with the Guru is happy when he sees that somehow we are walking on our spiritual paths. Right? And that part, if it's to do with consciousness, means as Brian mentioned, this internal dialogue has a lot to do with what consciousness is going on. And I have to say, for most of us, it's a battle with that internal dialogue or with what's going on in our consciousness until we become like the realized souls, like Kadamakanana Maharaj, who was very social, but did a lot of stuff as soon as he was in his room. Got so much things finished that came up, at least for me, more when he passed. But you know, so many stuff he would do, then he would come out as if he was a carefree person, as if he hadn't done anything. But actually, it was just because his connection with the Lord was very deep, that both parts were important to him. Didn't stop him from joking or other elements or being happy, right? So that's part of it too. In terms of working with our consciousness, I think that's the element, our main strive in spiritual life. When you have the basics there, like the 4 eggs and like this, then the next thing for us mostly is to strive to put that consciousness in a sort of, I would say, in a loving way, off from whatever is affecting us in so many ways, and somehow slowly more and more towards Krishna. Even being it from, you got some new shoes and say, hey Krishna, I need new shoes because to go outside with the cows and, you know, I need these shoes, you know, to whatever it may be like this. Or, sorry Krishna, there was this problem, you know, we also try to offer any problems that are in the ashram. Please, you see how we can work together with this. And when you pray deeply enough, that association will transcend in other parts of your life. For example, I was thinking about the association of the people in the ashram, and then somehow I had a copy, not the condensed version of Prabhupada Lilamrita, but the longer version, you know, 6 volumes. And I opened it up randomly. I was like, okay. And there was Prabhupada was writing about, you know, there are problems in the ashram. He was writing to he was not like he had not founded ISKCON at that time. He was just saying that when the ashram it was very difficult to concentrate because of problems in the ashram. And then so he was being given some instruction at that time. I was like, wow, even in Prabhupada's time, you know, for Prabhupada, it was difficult, you know. So we all have things to contend with. And when I read that, I thought, oh, okay. Somehow it gave me hope. I said, oh, we will try. He continued to try despite the difficulties. That was the point in there. And that association also then helps us, right, to continue. So then in summary, we have association with each other, with people who are older, younger, with our authorities, with our guru, with Prabhupada, and also with the Lord. So many different levels of association. And the more we try to, I'm also not so keen on the word purify. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It sounds always too heavy for me. Purifying, it feels like, well, I'm not pure. But if one tries instead to just make a little bit of an endeavor every day to increase that love or attraction that you have for Krishna, this helps so much. Just a little bit each time. If you think, okay, what can I do today that will make me think of him? It doesn't have to be torture. It could be, okay, I'm going to do some kirtan or something nice, right? It helps. Alakananda, I'm going to dance for Krishna. Lord. Pramagni may think, maybe I meditate on what could be the next outfit. What could it be? Something along these lines. I'm sorry, of course, there's much more to your personalities than I all know, but just some hints into this element. Hope it was okay. It's all right. Any other thoughts or comments? Otherwise, we're on time.
I just have a little comment.
Oh, please.
That I remember, I think it was Mataji that said that in relationships it's very important to keep etiquette also.
Yes.
And I found this when I was at the manor in the ashram. Naturally, English people are extremely polite, and I found this that it makes.
What did you say? What did you say?
No? I don't know. I found this mood that everyone was super polite, so it made everything more easy. Actually, there were two girls from North America, from the USA, and they were very advanced, but since they had this mood of being a little bit rude or, oh, I know everything, I know better than you, then it made the relationship a little bit harder than with the kind of the other mood, which was more polite.
Yeah, there's quite British or English ladies there at the manor, I noticed, and that is normally sort of genuine politeness, not just this, but extra English etiquette is that one is extra careful, and for other people who don't understand that, they're like, what's wrong, why? But it's this extra care in that relationship. Like Balaram Pran used to tell me, why do you keep saying sorry in the conversation? You didn't do anything wrong. And I'm like, that's part of the etiquette of what we are. And it's not so far away from Vaishnava etiquette in one sense. We always offer respect and sort of, take that step away. Yeah. I get it though. We could be American or English can also be fake with the etiquette. So it's a balance up, right, of being polite, but not not fake, right? But something in between. It's always nice to be polite, but I grew up in this way. That it's important. It's very important. Like when I tell children, they should say Hare Krishna, and the mamas are like, huh? I'm like, something they should greet people. They do also in Germany. If you see someone, you're not just, sometimes amongst devotees, we're like, huh? But, normally you should at least say Hare Krishna, or you could say outside a good morning, or like this. It's a acknowledgement of that person and respectful, right? To show. Hare Krishna, yes. Yes. Yeah. It's nice to take, and when I've noticed sometimes I've been so busy here that I'm like, oh my goodness, it's busy, you just need to head out. And just in a moment, like on Sunday, I was just like, and Murari's on my like, these 4 visitors came, so to say, uninvited, unexpected. And we know that we should be more careful. So it's like in between the door, my mind was saying, go home. And the other part, and then something just told me, okay, is it your first time here? Should I show you where you need to go? And you saw the eager faces, yes, please, let's go. Often these people come back. It's happened to me a few times. Yes, you were the first person I spoke to when I came here, whoever. And they remember. 90% of the time I don't remember because we just have too many people. But that first impression makes such a difference to these people. Sometimes there's even a difference between whether we stay or we come back, or that we even begin spiritual life. Ramananda, he did a yagya for some people, and he said, well, it's important to be vegetarian. And they sort of made a vow, but he didn't know if there was, okay, from now we will be vegetarian. So yesterday they were not vegetarian. So Ramananda, I remember looking a bit bewildered, like, they come for a yagya, I tell them, I don't think they will hold to it. 5 years later they came and they had another child and did the yagya. And then again he said, vegetarian. Somehow he doesn't always ask this question. He said, yes, Prabhu, 5 years ago we made that vow that we would be vegetarian. We've stuck to it since you asked us. So some people really get influenced by that moment or by that time. My greatest achievement, if I can say, is when a few people came to me and said, yes, I chanted because in the shop you showed me how to and you encouraged me to. And I was like, huh? Like, because in the shop you're also there to, to sell and this, but of course, what you want to show that they can do it properly. And the fact that some years later they're still chanting is amazing because, from my own experience, the chanting is what makes the biggest difference in our spiritual life, right? So yeah, but I moved off the topic, which was about polite. But it was, to be honest, it was to do with politeness. Out of politeness, I showed them how to do the japa. Out of politeness, I took them to the room. But actually, it's all Vaishnava etiquette, right? Because it works hand in hand, and yeah, it makes a difference, right? Generally, in the environment, if you feel it's sort of more or less genuine, you feel quite safe and happy. But if somebody, you're just walking in and someone doesn't try to open the door or do anything, then you feel like, oh, it just makes you feel a little bit unwelcome. You know what I mean? It's just subtle part, Like with these guests, if I just, and I was like, oh God, like, okay, let me just go with them. That extra step to see. I couldn't do everything, but to some, yeah. It's nice. It's nice that they have. Please. Kind.
For me, it's like not only the external, but then also, when it's time to tell you, okay, yeah, this doesn't work, they will tell you,
In a devotee, in an association, yes.
Yes.
But I think this is nice. I don't mean to be cultural, but this could be a bit more better in the Italian culture, where people speak more what they're feeling. I don't know if it's also like this in Argentina, but they speak more. And this is the problem with English, maybe German culture, is that they're polite. How are you? I'm fine. The whole world could be falling apart. I'm fine. Depending on which part you grew up. Like, generally, where I grew up, if somebody says, how are you? You can tell them, I'm not doing good, but I hope it gets better. You could, this is where that part I grew up. But the other part where they're just like, I'm fine. And then you meet them and then again, oh, yes, everything is nice and this is good. But you don't really get a feeling of them. That's where it goes extreme. And actually one of the reasons I came here, because at that time, so I've been here almost 15 years, right? But back then, 20 years ago in the movement, it was always like, Hare Krishna, Mataji, how can I serve you? But like, what? Like, are you okay? Like, no life there. No, it's different. Like, I've seen it with some Indians. Hey, Mata, can I do something? Can I help you? And they mean it, right? They mean, okay. I'm like, can you carry that? And okay, thank you. But this, how can I help you? And you're like, and then even if you ask something, they might already walk away. So it's this element of also our own lives, our genuineness to help. I sometimes open my mouth and then realize I have to carry out what I said, because it's too quick to say, can I help? And I'm like, okay, who's going to take care of the kids at this moment? So then one has to balance up. But this opening, this is the part that's really from Nectar Instructions, revealing of one's mind. It doesn't say talk about anything that comes, but to really go into the depth of this. This was certainly lacking in my association back then. It was just too polite. It was too polite, like everything good, everything nice. I can't speak about what's going on. Until, back then, when I worked and what I did, people always told me their problems on the train everywhere. So, but it didn't mean that I spoke about my problems. Well, they told me, with my work, it told me. So I also had to learn because it's an exchange, right? The sixth love in exchanges is revealing, you hear and you also reveal. So it's a two-way process. One also has to learn to receive, both ways, which is like, we're not just receiving that prasadam, we're receiving actually the love of God. If the whole time you think that you can just give it out without receiving, we haven't got the real picture, right? We give what we have to give, which is prasadam or whatever gift, with our intention, but to receive also takes humility sometimes, to also be able, so in that way also to reveal one's mind, to say that there are problems or difficulties, one has to be a bit like, the pride goes then in that moment, and that's quite good. So, to learn, Hare Krishna. In the end, we will become so mixed as a race, these genders will blend in, but we're not there yet, Like when you do children's ethnic minority, it's becoming more and more, I'm a quarter this and a quarter. It's at one moment they will just get rid of this sort of formation. Until then, it's like we appreciate each other. Yeah, and I have it all the time. Like, are you Indian? Are you English? Are you German? And anything you like, anything you want, Then it's sort of fun. You're funny that how Prabhupada says that we're not Englishman or American with this, and then we're not this. We're not even, beyond that. Who are we? Important. Thank you, Fain. Thank you for your questions and comments.